everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about other supplements like fish oil, glucosamine, because the whole topic come up, and I said the other day that there are really only a handful of useful supplements for most people, and those are kind of conditional, and these are really popular, common supplements, and they didn't make my list. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skill at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And I think these are interesting ones to cover because fish oil used to be on my list. I used to say, I think at one time, like creatine, protein powder, fish oil, vitamin D3, and I took fish oil off that list, right? I have those other three, and they're conditional, meaning not everyone is automatically going to benefit from a health or performance perspective from those other three, so they're somewhat conditional. And I think even fish oil potentially falls into that category, but I feel like for most people it's less likely to be useful. But we'll jump to that in a minute. I guess I'll cover kind of the glucosamine first because that's one of those two where even medical doctors have been iffy on it. For years, like glucosamine and chondroitin, I've known doctors who advise it to people, including like even my dad. But the evidence for it helping with things like osteoarthritis and these other issues and joint problems really hasn't been that good. The research hasn't backed it particularly well, and that's the problem you run into, is that when you start getting more studies that don't show a benefit than studies that do show a benefit, that's not very promising for a supplement. And I remember at one time, glucosamine was a really expensive supplement. I like to take it, the doses people were taking, it wasn't even like inexpensive. And I guess ultimately what it came down to is with that of, since there's a chance that it might help, it's one of those that the research isn't that good, so you say, okay, maybe there's a 1 in 4 chance that maybe it'll help people with these issues. Well, I mean, if you're dealing with something like osteoarthritis, and you have a product that you're going to spend $30, $40, $50 a month on that has like maybe a 1 in 4 chance that it might help you, it might help. Odds are it won't. The odds are not in its favor based upon the research, but there's at least a some chance. Okay, that's a little bit different. People are taking it for that purpose. But if you're a healthy, young, or even middle-aged lifter, and you don't have these sort of problems, and you're taking it just for joint health, and you're seeing any benefit, you're probably getting a placebo. What I would say to people there, if your joints and things are hurting, it's time to reevaluate the way that you're training, because joint pain isn't normal for heavy lifting. And I'm telling you guys right now, as a power lifter who's about to be 42, coming up in less than 3 weeks, I don't have joint pain. I have other nagging things. I have certain muscle issues and everything else that I run into. I have my share of injuries over the years that I've had to deal with, and only one major one. But the point is, I don't have joint problems, and I probably lift. You guys have probably seen me on camera, even in my 40s, lift more weight than the majority of you are probably lifting. Now, some of you guys are pretty damn strong, and you guys know who I'm talking about, like 1%, maybe 1% of my audience is showing me up big time. And you guys are there. I've seen some of you guys are freakishly strong. So I'll give you props there. But for the majority of you guys, I don't see too many of my followers who are talking about this stuff, worried about their joint pain and everything. I don't see them doing 5, 6, 7 reps of 500 pounds on deadlift, right, without a belt. So let's be honest here. You guys aren't really necessarily hanging with me. Again, I don't see anybody doing a 485 squat 5 days in a row, 6 days in a row without wraps. So, I mean, let's be realistic here. The majority of you guys aren't even lifting what you guys have seen me lift in my 40s, right? So, that being said, and I don't have joint pain. I'm going to tell you guys right now, joint pain is not normal for heavy lifting. There's something wrong with your technique. There's something wrong with your programming. You've got muscle imbalance issues, and a supplement is not going to fix that. So no, I throw glucosamine into one of those areas of the odds are not in your favor that it's going to be useful. We come over to fish oil, and I think fish oil is kind of a conditional useful supplement. Now, I did have some data years ago showing some possible different health benefits and impacts on triglycerides and everything else, but more and more research has emerged showing that really it doesn't seem to help as much as we thought it did. In other words, people who supplement with fish oil who have various issues of history with various cardiac issues, they don't seem to reduce their mortality rate. They don't seem to reduce their rates of heart attack and stroke, things like that, by taking it. So the evidence isn't particularly robust for it helping with these health benefits. And as far as this other stuff goes, we could argue about performance things, but we see people, even some of the evidence-based community, saying crazy things like you need 2 total grams of EPA and DHA every day. And I'm sorry, that's not really supported by the literature. That's just an arbitrary number people came up with, and a lot of these people are involved in the supplement industry. And the reality is there is evidence that too much fish oil actually has health consequences. And Alan Aragon was the first person to point that out to me, and I know he's not the most popular person out there right now for a number of reasons, but I still like Alan. And he brought out some data on that actually taking 10 or more grams of the normal strength a day could actually compromise your immune system. So, I mean, it's not a free lunch there. There are issues with it. And it's one of those that you had people who were going to the extremes of, recommending their athletes take 30 or 45 caps a day and stuff. And here's the reality of it. If it helped that much with performance, there are so many people who are winning medals in the Olympics. There are people who are world record holders in powerlifting. There are people winning major bodybuilding titles. All of these different things who don't take fish oil. Now, granted, people are going to say, well, they're taking other drugs and stuff. Well, that's fine. But if it really gave any performance edge or muscle building edge, I'm sorry, you wouldn't see so many people doing so well without it. And I've just never seen any significant evidence that it really and truly makes a difference. The evidence just isn't necessarily there. It's a possibility. But then we get into this area of kind of maybe a conditional supplement. If you were on an ultra low fat diet, maybe 20 grams a day or 25 grams of fat a day, okay, I can see fish oil possibly being an issue. But for most of us, we're eating enough healthier fats and we are getting traces of omega-3. We're getting at least ALA, and people can argue, well, you're not converting that at a high enough rate. Yeah, you convert it just fine. If you're eating a nice, balanced, good diet and you're getting enough of that in there, you're fine. If you're eating a lot of green vegetables, which I do, I try to eat a pound of green veggies every day. I do eat nuts. I get most of my fat from nuts and things like that. So we start getting into that category. I legitimately don't believe fish oil is really going to have any significant benefits. It's one of those where people are following really, really extreme diets, which, I mean, some people do in the fitness community. They do try to do a 20 gram of fat a day diet. But, I mean, I would look at that and say, are you sure that's really even sustainable? And we kind of come back to that other point of if your diet is so extreme that you have to add supplements in. That's the argument I make towards sometimes the vegan diets and some of the keto diets and other stuff also. If your diet is so extreme that you need to add supplements to it, again, I've got to question whether it's a good diet or not. I mean, a good diet, yeah, okay, fine. Some supplements, some creatine might help because a lot of us don't want to eat that much meat. Not everyone wants to eat red meat every day. Or maybe some people don't eat red meat at all. Okay, fine. So, I mean, creatine very well might help you in that regard. There's a good chance that it will. But, I mean, outside of things like that, when we start talking about needing to take essential fats, needing to take B12, needing to add magnesium to your diet, all these different things, if you're really needing to add these things for optimal health or performance, I mean, at a certain point, I've got to say maybe your diet needs work. Maybe your so-called amazing diet or super clean diet that you're following isn't that good. Because if it was that good, you wouldn't need to add these things in. And it kind of comes back to that point of if your diet is so low in fat that you need a fish oil supplement to get some basic omega-3s, I mean, that's a problem. And you are going to run into diet adherence issues with that eventually. Those cravings are going to get you eventually when your fat is that low. But ultimately, I mean, most people on even relatively low-fat diets, I'm sorry, we're getting enough green vegetables or fish or, hell, even eggs, so grass-fed beef. We're getting enough of this stuff in there, enough nuts that we are getting, even though it's in trace amounts, where most of us are getting enough omega-3. I think that's a big myth out there that we're all deficient in omega-3. The reality is plenty of people whose diets, according to the people coming up with these numbers, what they think you need, again, kind of supplement industry people, there's plenty of people in some of these societies living to be 100 years old, who are in that category. There are people winning medals in multiple sports in the Olympics who aren't hitting these thresholds of omega-3 that people think they need to hit. And I'm sorry, that's just supplement bullshit at that point. It really is. That's industry BS trying to sell you products. It kind of comes back to my point of that's a maybe conditional supplement for people on extreme diets. Just like a vegan diet is an extreme diet, and most vegans are taking B12 if they're smart because they need to. We fall back in that area with a fish oil supplement. If your diet is so ridiculously low in fat and even in green vegetables and everything else that you're needing an omega-3 supplement, you're needing fish oil, I've got to question the quality and even sanity of your dietary choices at that point. We need to be realistic about this stuff. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.